What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel and welcome to another Week 9 preview and prediction. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is a top 25 matchup from Nashville, Tennessee. The second time this season, Vanderbilt is hosting a top 5 team. You remember just about a couple of weeks ago, they defeated the then number 1 team in the country in the Alabama Crimson Tide in this very stadium. The goalposts were out in the Tennessee River. Well, they're going to look to do that again against one of the SEC's new powerhouses in Quinn Ewers and the Texas Longhorns. We'll tell you everything you need to know about the Longhorns and about the Commodores from Nashville, Tennessee in just a little bit. But before we do that, you guys know I got to say thank you for all the love and support I continue to see, and thank you for taking time out of, I'm sure, your busy day to just simply sit down and watch this video. But if you want to help support me in other ways, and I mean, if you want to help support the channel first and foremost, and you haven't hit that subscribe button or rung the bell yet, please make sure you do those two things, especially if you are as big of a college football nerd as I am, so you don't miss anything that I upload, and just interact with the channel in any way you can. Liking, commenting, sharing, it all helps what I do here on this platform. But if you want to support me in other ways, you want to see some of the other field work I do within the sports media realm, aka podcasts and articles, and me even doing play-by-play and color commentary for some games throughout my local high schools and colleges, please go give me a follow on Twitter, or X, whatever you prefer to call it. It's at TailgateNate29, including a volleyball game I'm calling tonight. It's a top 15 D2 matchup. Should be a good one. You should probably tune into it if you are a volleyball fan. But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, let's dive on into this one. From Nashville, Tennessee, Texas Longhorns, Vanderbilt Commodores. Who decided to make Vanderbilt an absolute wagon? Because this team, I think, is going to be a lot harder to stop in this one than a lot of people think. People are thinking, okay, yeah, the Bama game, it was nice and all, but Vanderbilt's surely not going to do it again, right? Well, Texas, to no surprise, is going to be the heavy favorite here. Vanderbilt can do it again, and I'll tell you how here in this video. But I got to tell you that in order to preview this game, we're going to go through some keys to the game when each team possesses the football. We'll first look at this Longhorn offense against the Commodore defense, and then we'll flip it. We'll look at Vanderbilt's offense versus Texas defense at the end of the video. Give you some final thoughts, how I think the game is going to play out, and then I'll give you a final prediction for who comes away with the win from Nashville, Tennessee. And we'll get started after a water break. Because as I always like to say, water is important, so make sure you stay hydrated. Number 5 versus number 25, top 25 battle in Nashville. Let's do it. Let's first start talking about this Texas offense here, and Quinn Ewers. Overall, this has been a Texas offense that has been really pretty darn good so far this season. They've scored at least 30 points in every single one of their contests leading up to that Georgia game. But the lack of production offensively, especially in that first half against the Georgia Bulldogs, is very concerning. Now, you have to give Georgia its flowers, right? That defense was next level stuff, and it's not like Texas just couldn't get anything going offensively for no reason. The Georgia defense made it really, really hard. But Quinn Ewers, I think, has got to play a whole lot better. You take a look at his stat line from that past game. I mean, he did miss a couple of throws, made some mistakes early on. He really started to clean it up as it went down the stretch, but only 211 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick for a quarterback so far this season that has already been dealing with some injuries and, I mean, just wanting to get back out there, and then you had to play that defense in your second game back. I mean, it was definitely going to be a tough task for him. Overall, I know some people are saying switch to Arch Manning, he struggled against that Georgia defense too, guys. No, he only threw 6 passes, and some people could say he looked better than Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers is going to be this team starter, but if you are this Texas offense, again, you couldn't get basically anything going against Georgia throughout the majority of that game until it got into the late stages. Wipe the slate clean. It's a new week. It's a new game. You're going on the road. You got to put that game behind you, and you got to get back to what the Longhorns do best, which is overall a very balanced attack led by Quinn Ewers and this pass game that can be really, really explosive. Isaiah Bond, Gunnar Helm, Golden, and Wingo, all of those guys have over 300 yards this year, and even Jaden Blue out of the backfield has 20 catches. Quinn Ewers loves to distribute the ball to everyone. He's got to get back to that. This run game has got to get back to being really, really good as well, with Wisner, Blue, and Gibson out of that backfield. All of them have at least 40 carries and 2 touchdowns so far this season. All of them right around that 4.5 to 5.5 yards per carry mark. And this is the Texas offensive front that was really highly touted coming into that Georgia game, and they got absolutely decimated. Georgia, 7 sacks and 10 tackles for loss. I mean, you take a look at the season total for Texas in sacks allowed with 13. More than half of the sacks that they've allowed so far this year came in that one game against the Georgia Bulldogs. That's why it's important to wipe the slate clean, to get it out of the way, push it out, learn from it, and move forward. This is a Vanderbilt defense that is, I know, ladies and gentlemen, it is going to be a little bit tough to stop because Vanderbilt, while again, a lot of these stats are not necessarily going to wow you. Their secondary, yeah, it could be better. 5.6 yards per play, yeah, right, that number could be better. 8 turnovers forced, okay, that's not a whole lot. They do a couple things really well. One, they're able to provide a pretty decent dose of pressure, which if this is the Texas offensive front that has not been able to wipe the slate clean and is going to continue to do what they did in that Georgia game, which is just allow everyone and anyone to live in that backfield, make a couple phone calls, and set up a business meeting, right? Vanderbilt is going to be able to have their way. It's not a team that is inept at being able to get pressure. They have 14 sacks on the year, guys. Vanderbilt has a good pass rush, and if the Texas offensive front is going to play like they did this past week, then, well, that's going to cause some trouble. But I think Vandy has got to create any and all havoc. I know they haven't forced a ton of turnovers so far this year, but they're forcing enough to make a difference, and they did so against the Alabama Crimson Tide as well. They forced just enough turnovers to make a difference and put the game out of reach for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Diego Pavia also put the team on his shoulders, but we'll talk more about that here later. I think they just got to create havoc, and the way to do that is winning the battle in the trenches. Can Texas reestablish that run game that only had 1.1 yards per carry against the Georgia Bulldogs in this game? Can the offensive line get back to doing what they had done before that Georgia game? On the flip side, Vanderbilt run defense that's been really good so far this year. Are they going to be able to sort of keep Texas at bay? And you go back and you take a look at what the Longhorns were last week. If it's a very similar story and they can't really run the ball and get a whole lot going, Vanderbilt is going to be able to provide some pressure. Now, the one thing that I do think is going to matter a whole lot that's not necessarily on the screen is that battle on third downs. Vanderbilt has done some really nice things throughout a lot of different parts of this defense. One area of concern you do have, especially against an offense that can be as good as Texas, they're just not a very good third down defense. If they can get off the field on the money downs, as well as slowing Texas down as much as they can and creating some havoc, that's some sacks and some turnovers, I think Vanderbilt's defense is going to be able to hold its end of the bargain. But the more important side of the ball here is this Vanderbilt offense. Is Diego Pavia going to need another legacy game? Well, let me go back and let me tell you what he did against the Alabama Crimson Tide in that historic upset that has really put Vanderbilt football on the map this season. Pavia, again, 16 of 20 is not going to absolutely wow you apart from the fact that that's an 80% completion percentage, but 252 yards, 2 touchdowns, made some really big runs there with his legs, and you could just feel the stat line is not going to, my apologies, the stat line is not going to tell you the full story with Diego Pavia from that game. He was electric. He just would not let his team lose. He's absolutely got to have that mentality against a Texas defense that has been one of the better defenses, if not the best defense the nation has seen so far. Even when you include that Georgia game, the Texas defense still did not allow Georgia to get a whole lot going. Georgia's first points of the game came on a short field because the Texas offense turned the football over. This is overall a Texas defense that is a lot more complete defensively than I think what Vanderbilt has seen so far this season. Again, Bama, well, they've had defensive struggles. Kentucky, they've had defensive struggles. Missouri, probably the best defense they've seen up to this point, and one of their 2 losses so far on the season. But Missouri's defense is not as good as what Vanderbilt is going to see out of Texas, which is why I think Pavia maybe necessarily needing to have another legacy game might very well need to be in the cards here for the Vanderbilt Commodores. But for Texas, again, just kind of the same thing offensively. Wipe that slate clean and prove your might. This is a Vanderbilt team that is not going to beat themselves. They're not heavily penalized. They've only turned the football over twice so far this season. They do a really good job at hanging on to the football. They do a good job at controlling the pace, controlling the tempo, controlling the clock. Texas has got to be able to force some negative plays. Prove your might. Texas, I mean, look, all credit to what the Commodores have done this year. This is just me speaking pure facts. Texas is bigger, they're more physical, they're stronger, and they need to be able to prove that here in this game. Prove your might, get in that backfield, force some turnovers, force some sacks, at least force some tackles for loss, and get Vanderbilt back moving the other direction. Because, like I just mentioned on the other side of the ball, it's also important here that the third down battle is going to be heavily vital. Vanderbilt has been a really good team on the money down so far this year. Texas has been a really good third down defense so far this season. The Commodores, throughout the entirety of the season, have proven that they will not go down easily. And Vanderbilt is going to fight in this game. That Bama game was not a fluky win. It was not like Bama was turning the football over left and right and Bama just didn't seem like themselves. We knew the defense had problems, and yeah, the defense absolutely could have played better, but the Bama offense did everything that it needed to do. Vanderbilt controlled the clock. They were more physical, and that's exactly the recipe that they need to follow here in order to beat a team like the Texas Longhorns. The only problem for the Vanderbilt Commodores is this. Vanderbilt has yet to really see a unit like Texas that is strong on both sides, right? You go back and look at some of the other games they played, Virginia Tech, they've got problems on really both areas of the football, I should say. Missouri, they don't necessarily look as crisp offensively. Bama, we all know that the struggles have been in their defense and especially defending the third down. Kentucky, they have offensive concerns, and Texas, really from top to bottom, might be the first full, complete, well-balanced team, both offensively and defensively, that the Commodores have seen so far this season. And I do definitely think that hurts them in this matchup, and it's why Texas is such a big favorite. Obviously, Texas is one of the new SEC powers. Vanderbilt is a team that is sort of like, hey, we're kind of new to being towards the top of the SEC. We really don't know what's this like. If you are Vanderbilt, you're playing with house money. Everything has to go right for you to make the college football playoff. Everything has to go right for you to get to Atlanta in the SEC championship game. But pulling off another upset like this is not out of the cards by any means, ladies and gentlemen. Diego Pavia, Clark Lee, and this team will fight, and they will fight to the very end. Unfortunately, I just think Texas is going to be a little bit too tough. I do think Quinn Ewers is going to bounce back. I think the amount of pressure and all the different packages that Texas can throw at you, not only offensively, but also defensively as well, is just going to be a little bit too much for the Commodores to handle. I do think Texas, at least at the start of the game, is going to have a little bit of trouble slowing down what Vanderbilt is going to throw at this team offensively, but I think they settle in nicely. I think Texas reestablishes their rhythm. They get back to doing what they've done throughout the majority of this season, minus that Georgia game, and Texas comes up with a road win in Nashville. I got 35-23, but I want to know what you guys think about this game in the comment section down below. Remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. We'll see you guys. Hopefully, maybe I'll have some extra predictions out tomorrow. If not, we'll do a little bit of a fun video. See all you then. Goodbye.